Hello, I'm Rob, and welcome to the Geek Show. We're talking about a video game. This time it's made by Spiders, a new game out on Focus Home Entertainment called GreedFall. We took a little bit of time with this because we wanted to have a good account of it. It's been out a little while, but we want to get a good account of it before we say what we think. And the initial impression is one of being impressed, really. We reviewed Technomancer a few years ago, and it was very raw. The ideas were there, the ambition was there, but it was very raw. That rawness is still here, but there's a very, very clear growth in the studio. Just looking at it from the face value, it's kind of reductive to look at it that way, because it appears to be just a Witcher ripoff, which is totally unfair, because there's a lot going on here, which gives it a depth, which is showing a development studio, really, really growing and finding themselves and finding their place. In it, you play a character called Desade, not Marky, where you basically are a lead in a small group called, a small town called Serene. You are moving, ostensibly it's going to the New World, to America, to colonise that, to rule over that, to find out what's going there, to manage it and whatnot. Although it's heightened and it's stylised and it's made more excessive and made like a fantasy thing. So there's giant tree monsters and there's people who can control the ground and the plants and all this sort of thing. So there's a lot of ambition there. And while I'm on that, let's just talk about the detail, because the detail is the real thing which stands out about this. It's a world defined by a lot of talking. The world building is immense in this. There's the history of a group called the Naughts, for example, is very, very dense. You have relationships with groups, so if you tackle a mission and you kill someone you shouldn't, or kill a group of people who you shouldn't, you'll have like a plus-minus effect, so -2 for Naughts, +2 for merchants, that sort of thing, if you kill people in the wrong place and the wrong time. It's incredibly dense like that. You can have a certain mission where you can have 2 ways to tackle it at the beginning of it. For example, early mission, you have like missions for the companions that you have, and on that point, if you deal with certain situations well, those companions will like you. You have 2 companions at the same time. If you deal with that situation badly, that companion, at worst case scenario, will actually leave you. But back to that mission, you have to find the records of a certain member of your crew, because he's a Naught, and Naughts have a very, very dense history, like I said. And you can do it in a way which you poison the drinks of the person who is providing the alcohol for them. By doing that, you have to talk to somebody, and if you don't have the right charisma to talk to that person and win them over to do something which they see as poisoning a group with their biggest customers, it will fail. If it fails, you've got a second way to do it, in which you stealth through the area, you get like a uniform of that group, and you go about doing your thing. And having that level of detail for a lot of the missions, that's like a side mission as well, that's not a main mission. It creates an incredible amount of depth in this game. I mean, on the screen now you can see the leveling system. There's 3 leveling systems, there's skills, traits, and just basic points, which allow you to really tailor the character to your liking. And I'll be honest, my character on screen there, I made her a black woman as sort of a little context provider for myself. Because it's period drama, a lot of period dramas are a procession of upper middle class white guys. And white girls. So by making it a black woman within the context of the story, it makes me think, what's her story? How did she get here? It's role-playing in a role-playing game, if you see what I mean. It gives it a little bit more context, a little bit more teeth to sink into on a personal level. On other levels, I do think it's incredibly rich as a piece of world design. The actual world itself isn't that rich. There's a lot of sort of muddy townships and big fields and caves and stuff like that. It basically fantasy, Western fantasy RPG 101. But it's just all the way the moving parts integrate with one another. It feels like a living, breathing world, much more than, well, Technomancer, for example. I mean, you got to relate it to the game that they did previously, and Technomancer was largely the same, but it's sort of cyberpunk and kind of Red Faction, Total Recall inspired. It was very much a studio grasping beyond their means. Whereas this one, they've grown from that experience exponentially. I think it was only 2-3 years since that was out. And here is a studio that's incredibly confident, with a world which, if you do it half-assed, it will reveal your game to be an utter mess. And the fact that there's no real limitations beyond the technology, because it's the same engine fundamentally, but as far as like a narrative piece of narrative design, this is a studio which has grown exponentially. And just on this, I just love the design. This is the map system that they use in the game, and isn't it just wonderful? I love them sort of all maps, and the fact that they've integrated it into the world design made by spiders. I love it. I absolutely love that sort of thing. Combat is what you'll be spending a great deal of your time doing, because it is an RPG. Is better than Technomancer. Technomancer was a very, very hard game because you were one person fighting against all sorts of swaves of monsters and madmen. The same is true here, but you're in a party of 3, which makes it a lot easier. You can have different sort of classifications. You can use your weapons, you can use technology, you can use magic. It's varied in that sense. And it's easier in that sense, but at the same time, like I said, it's functioning off the same engine with the combat. So on one level, there's more detail to it. You can have all these sorts of stats upgrades you can see there with the costumes and the crafting. You can make your own stuff, but the actual day-to-day of running around the world, fighting around the world, it's, to put it this way, I use a football analogy. PES is a very slick game. You have a great tactile feeling in the world. You feel like your feet are planted in that world. But in FIFA, it feels like you're sort of gliding around above it, not really interacting with it. It's very slick and very well put together, and the production values are excellent, but it's kind of slippy, I think is the word I'm looking for. Incredibly well done and detailed, but slippy. And like I saw shown there, I mean, you can't just jump down off something. You have to press X at the specific place. So it looks great, but it's slippy. I mean, that's a really weird point for me to fixate on, but it's when you're with something for a very long time, as I have been with GreedFall, these little things where in a small session might seem like me being very, very picky, but the sense of gliding around the world and not really planting your feet in it, despite that world being absolutely gorgeous and interesting and intriguing and full of all these sorts of systems which are pointing towards it. Very, very ambitious studio growing and developing with each new iterative title, each new title in their catalogue of work. That fills me with hope and aspiration, but it's a game that's held back by its engine, I think. This is a franchise, or it's not a franchise even, this is a game, a title, which is getting the absolute most out of the engine that it's using. It's better than the engine it's using, and I can't help but think, I mean, yeah, maybe it'd be boring if it used one of the sort of, I don't know, the big tentpole games engines, which cost a lot of money, which is fair. But if it used one of those, it would be a lot more generic visually. I mean, it does stand out as raw as it is, but if it used one of those engines, it would actually be able to support the systems and the world and everything which is put inside of it. And I know I'm being picky, I'm being very picky, but it doesn't change the fact that I really, really like this. And at the end of the day, liking this, what it all comes down to is the fact that I like the world, I like the characters, and the way the systems interact with each other are very, very good. It's both using traditional RPG systems, as you say here, me running into an area where everybody is stronger than me, so it's a classic Monty Python run away a bit, but how everything interplays with each other, how everything works. I really like GreedFall, and I'm super excited for what Made by Spiders do next.